Hi, I'm Jeff Cornelson from Cornelson Productions. I thought I would start a series. If you know anything about my channel, you know I don't have a lot of traffic there. I just put some things of interest every once in a while. I think the most used video I've ever had was a fixed repair to a Polaris quad. So that's it's got several thousand views, but the rest of my stuff has maybe 100 or so here and there. But I know some of you obviously are interested in airplanes and flying, because if I look on YouTube, you sure see a lot of channels about flying, and people sometimes just put whole flights in there with a little bit of commentary. If you're a flying nut like myself, I can just watch those for hours. I do a lot of vicarious flying through people's YouTube channels. Some of my favorite, of course, are like Flight Chops and Plane Savers, Aviation 101, several from Steve-O Knievo, several from others from the States there, and I just love watching those. And although they always say they're not for training purposes, if you're a pilot, you can learn a lot just from watching those, and can really help when you see things done right, help you in your own work of proficiency if you are a pilot. The reason I wanted to start this series is because I am really hoping I can buy an airplane. It's been a dream of mine all my life. I'm a private pilot. I've had my private pilot's license since 1985, I guess. And I've only got a little over 200 hours this past year. Thankfully, I have a friend that has a 172. He lets me rent it, so I think I've put in 14 or 15 hours in the past 12 months. But I'm one of those guys who would like to put maybe 20, 30, 40 hours on a year. But it just hurts me too much to pay that much in rental. Here up in northwestern Alberta, Canada, it's not uncommon to pay $175 an hour, and sometimes plus GST for a simple 172. Anyways, I thought I would kind of just have a bit of a vlog on the pains and issues in trying to buy an airplane. Airplanes in and of themselves are not necessarily ridiculously expensive. They are to maintain. I understand that. But, an airplane, for instance, I'm kind of looking at right now is about $30,000 or $40,000 cheaper than a well-decked out Dodge Ram with a diesel engine. I saw some ads there going like $80,000-$90,000, and an airplane I'm looking at right now is $68,250 to be exact. So I thought I would kind of just have you follow along with the process of buying an airplane. And I honestly, at this moment, don't know if it's going to work out. There's financing to be involved, and in Canada, to finance aircraft, it is not as easy as in the States. If you're an AAOP member in the States, there's all kinds of links to people who will finance aircraft with as little as 10 or 15% down, and pretty much at any level. Here in Canada, we have some dedicated aviation financing options, but they usually want the aircraft to be at least $100,000, and in one case, at least $500,000. Well, sorry, that's not my ballpark. It's not my territory. And of course, banks, although I haven't, in honest, tried them, who knows, that might be a thing that you see me trying to do in this process. But banks generally don't understand aircraft. They don't understand the idea that an older aircraft, as long as it's maintained, actually does not necessarily depreciate, but can actually appreciate. And they also don't like the idea that you can have an asset that, if the keys get into the wrong hand, could be, flown to South America in a couple of days. They don't like the idea of that movable of an asset. So yeah, so to get financing is tricky. I have a pretty good credit rating. I'm not going to talk too much in detail about that, but I do have some debt, and it's going to be interesting. Of course, all of those things are minor in compared to checking and making sure I have the blessing of my wife. My wife is, she's flown with me a few times. She doesn't really like flying that much, but she doesn't mind it, and I've tried to make the pitch that we could go and see some friends, that we normally wouldn't go on a regular weekend because it would take a 10 or 12 hour or 15-hour car ride. Whereas, if the weather was half decent, we could jump in an airplane and be there in 3 or 4 hours with the right airplane. So she kind of likes that idea. Also, I'm at this stage in my life where if I don't do it soon, I'm probably about 8 or 9 years away from retirement. And if I don't get into an airplane now, I probably won't be able to afford it after I retire. So there's some time crunch issues there. Plus, I have two daughters who are both in university. We don't pay their full way, but we help them out considerably. And, that's an issue too. Plus, my wife is at a stage in life where she would really appreciate if she didn't have to work outside of the home. She likes homemaking, but it's kind of been a necessity for her to work with some of our obligations. And so there's a challenge there. So you may see me working that through as well. So in the end, will I have an airplane by the time this is done? I'm going to say right now it's 50-50, but I thought there must be lots of you guys out there who are kind of average people, working, a job, and maybe your spouse works or whatever. You've got other obligations. Maybe you got some debt. You owe something on a vehicle or a house yet. And you're wondering if this is doable. The honest answer is I think it can be. But if you want to follow along with me, you'll find out my experiences and maybe see some of the joys and the pitfalls of trying to buy an airplane. I should mention that many years ago, before we had kids, I was in a partnership with a really nice, I think it was a 1967 PA 28-140, so the old Piper Cherokee 140. Not a real true four-place aircraft. There's 4 seats, but if anybody knows anything about them, they're basically 2 people with maybe a suitcase and full fuel, and that's about as much as you'd hope to take along. It's almost a kind of a glorified Cessna 150 or 152. But it was a fun aircraft. I love it. And actually, ever since that, I've always wanted to get back to a low-wing aircraft if possible, because I just love the visibility, especially in tight around airports, especially busy airports. I just find that wing below is way easier to deal with than this big honking wing over top. But that's just a preference. I know there's pros and cons to any kind of aircraft. So I'll say right now that the airplane I'm really interested in is a Comanche, so a Piper Comanche 250. The one I'm looking at is $68,250. I would hope that the guy would be willing to bargain, although he says firm in his ad. But I also went to see the airplane. It is really nice inside and out. I'd probably give it a 8 out of 10 outside and maybe a 7 out of 10 on the inside. It's dated, but the material is in fantastic condition. The instrument panel is relatively updated. Autopilot, GPS, that kind of stuff. And I think it's a 1958. It's got about 6,000 hours on the frame and about 1,300 on the engine. So a good 7 hours. At the rate I go, that could last me until I would sell it, and it might even still have hours, but we'll see. Yeah, it's a good price, but the prop is due, and of course, anybody knows a prop job, even though it's in beautiful condition, it still has to go through its mandatory overhaul and check the parts and all that kind of stuff. And that here is going to be at least $3,500. So what I'm hoping is when I make an offer to this guy, if in fact I get the financing, is I'm going to say, look, can I just pay you? I'll pay you the price, but you do the prop. or at the very least, there's a guy who is actually he's trying to sell it for this owner, and I might say, well, why don't you guys split your commission, and do the prop, or this guy actually who is selling it as actually AME, and maybe say, hey, can you give me a deal if you want your commission, can you give me a really good deal on the overhaul of the prop? Those are just ideas at this point. Anyways, this is about a 10 or 11 minute video at this point. So I'll just show you what I'm working on now. I wanted to kind of see what the deal is on insurance. So I just have here. I've got quotes insurance company, and I just see it just came up on my Gmail, and so I gave them the actual airplane that I'm interested in. But of course, it's if you know about the Comanches, they're of course landing gear, and I've never flown a landing gear aircraft before, so I'd have to have training and that kind of stuff in it. So I thought, well, the other models I'd be interested in are something that can haul, but I want an airplane that can haul me, my wife, maybe even my two adult children, and maybe each a small bag or something like that. So that's the category I'm looking at. So I got also quotes on a Piper, I think it's a 35. Anyways, it's a 4-place aircraft, but it can haul, it's got about 1,500 pounds of useful load. And then also Cherokee 6. So I just took some random ones off the internet and gave the information to this company that does insurance, and that gives you a break on insurance if you are part of the Canadian Operators or Owners and Pilots Association. So I'm just going to look at that now, and let's see what Marissa Lamontco has to say. So it says, I approached AIG for an in-motion quote on the Comanche 250. This was declined. In-motion quote on the Cherokee 6 was also declined. I was able to submit an in-motion quote for the Piper Cherokee 235. I am still waiting to receive it. I am providing you with a quote for all 3 aircraft on Copa's Silver. So that's a different type. So that was the gold one that they declined. And then she said, so this is just new. You're getting this just as soon as I am. But she did send me an email yesterday that would I like a quote on the Copa Silver? And I said, for sure. And what she says about the Silver is that hull is only insured while aircraft is not in motion. See attached. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will get back to you shortly with the gold quote for the 235. That's the one that's also actually very similar in terms of specs to the Comanche, except it's got fixed gear, but it's also I think about $10,000 more. Anyways, so let's just take a look at this quote. This was the Cherokee 6 260, $1,000 deductible with third party bodily injury and property damage liability excluding passengers. That's not there. So they just, that's right. It's just a combined single limit including passengers liability. So PLPD, personal liability, and any damage is at $2 million. And that premium is $2,905 for a year. Which is actually, that's not bad. Like if you break that down to 12-month payments, that's actually fairly decent. But look at actually the Comanche 250 with $500 is only $1,635, and that's with landing gear, with landing gear. And what about that 235? Oh no, that's not. 2014. Oh yeah, okay. And then that other one, the 235 is same price as 16 $119. Okay. So as you can guess, what I was trying to do is find out, you know, I would probably make a purchase based on what insurance is going to cost me. So that's pretty important, is to know what what my insurance costs would be, so I can figure that into my annual expenses. Okay, that's about as long as we're going to have today. My next project will be to fill out my application for insurance, or not insurance, sorry, my application for that aircraft that I'm interested in. I did check with them, and they can kind of pre-approve me, and even if I don't settle on that particular aircraft, then I would, they would, my guarantee, or whatever they would approve me for, would be probably valid for about 90 days. And as long as the another aircraft that I'm looking at, is of similar value, then I wouldn't have to reapply. So yeah, I guess my next process will be to actually go and get that application filled out. There is another company I found that might be better than the company I'm trying with, for starters, but they really only like to use it if the airplane is going to be used primarily for business. So I'd have to figure a way around that if this one doesn't work out. But because this guy said that the interest rates would be higher that I'm looking at, and also they may want more down. So even if I'm approved, I might not be able to scrape enough money together for the down payment. Anyways, that's my next hurdle. This looks actually promising so far in terms of the insurance. And yeah, we'll go from there. And next time I have a significant decision or more information, that'll be episode number 2. All right. So what do we call this? We call this Plane Hunters. All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye.